This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the meeting. Sorry I'm late. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to excuse myself. It doesn't matter anyway, but glad you're all here. And call me in order. What time is it, Lisa?
1:45.
Thank you. Lisa, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Mike Espirito,
Here.
Sean Powell,
Here.
Matt McDonald,
Here.
John Hitchcock,
Here.
and Bud Kunkel. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have a
We
quorum.
have a quorum. Thank you very much. Approval agenda, please, commissioners. So moved. Second. Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Hearing none, the opposite. Agenda is approved. Moving forward, the minutes from the June 6th meeting. Commissioners. Move approve. I'll second it. Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, minutes are approved from the June 6th regular meeting. Number 5, non-action items from air sale. Ready, folks? Ready?
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Vice President and General Manager of the Aircel MRO here at Roswell. We have a parts distribution side of the house too that falls underneath Ron Wolf, who works at our Coral Vehicles office. He's the Senior Vice President of Quality there. So Aircel was founded in 2008 by Nick Manazzo and Bob Nichols. I believe the first aircraft they bought was a set of DC-8s that actually came here, parked, dismantled, and the parts were kept in a warehouse here, and along with the simulator that's still here. So of course we're trying to market that, but the DC-8 market's a little rough right now. As it says here, we're dedicated to providing integrated aftermarket services and products designated to help aircraft stakeholders realize significant savings in their operations. So we provide, next slide, please. Go ahead. No, there you go. So we're basically two divisions. There's the Tech Ops division and the Asset Management. In the Tech Ops division, there are 3 MROs for aircraft overhaul and repair, storage, dismantling. Roswell being one, Goodyear over in Arizona, and we're just getting ready to open the doors in a new facility in near Memphis, Tennessee, in Millington. A little hangar there that's roughly the same size as the one that we're in down here, 86. A little higher roof, yeah, the 275s in it, kind of nose to tail. So a little bit bigger facility, but there's warehousing there too that we've been using already. This facility came open and the company jumped on it. So we're 3 MROs. Goodyear and Roswell basically do the same thing. We're aircraft maintenance overhaul, aircraft storage, aircraft dismantles, and the like services. In Millington, they'll be more focused on aircraft modifications, cargo door mods, ABDS or ADD-S installations there. On the asset management side, we're into aircraft sales and leasing. So we do that. Some aircraft engine work, reassemble aircraft engines, not a lot of taking the airplane apart or taking the engine apart, but we do have an engineering group that is focused on engines. On the redesign, engineering solutions, Aircel does design certain needs for aircraft, and on the next slide, we can go ahead and go to that. The next slide will show you on the asset management side over there in the aircraft sale, or right here, I'm sorry, engineered solutions. The products that provide is AirAware, AirSafe, and AirTrack. And what those do is there's a system designed to mitigate oxygen in a fuel tank to keep the engine or the tanks from blowing up. And then there's AirAware, which is a system that is yet to be approved by the FAA, but we're about an inch away from it. It's going through flight testing right now. It's actually a set of goggles that pilots wear and they can see through any type of weather. Really exciting system there once that gets on the ground. And then AirTrack is the ADS-B system where it's designed to, all aircraft have to have this system now where you can track the aircraft anywhere in the world. So those are 3 designs that AirSail offers. Once again, it just shows the aircraft MROs, AirSail and Goodyear, Roswell, Millington. We have a component overhaul shops. We have one up in Rio Rancho that does landing gear. Then we have AirSail Aerostructures in Miami, which does a lot of composite component, flight control repairs, that kind of thing. And then AirSail Accessories in Miami, which is a component shop, hydraulics, pneumatics, some avionics parts there. We also provide parts manufacturing authority, so we can, for the kits that we offer for the AirSafe, AirTrack, AirAware, we actually build those kits ourselves. Some of the parts we manufacture ourselves, some we sublet out, but we build those kits, sell those kits, and do the installation of those also. Engineering services, we do have an engineering group that provides STC and DER services. And of course, on the other side, we've got the AirSail sales and leasing, engine sales and leasing, and we also have used serviceable material market, which is kind of what we do here a lot. Dismantle airplanes, parts come off, they're either sent to a shop, overhauled, put back on the shelf, sold as inventory, or we have just as used material and sold as is. And that's what's in a lot of the warehouses that we have here. Building 58 down here has got a lot in it too. Next slide. So this is kind of just our mission. Obviously, we're going to provide superior value in everything we do. Our vision is to be the single leading source for aircraft maintenance, MRO, component repairs, engineering. And then our core values: safety, quality, innovation, drive, integrity, and teamwork. AirSail right now is about 640 full-time employees. We're in several countries. Go to the next slide. This one is just a breakdown of the MRO I've already talked about. Go to the next one. Our component MRO, we talked about that. And then the 3 systems that we've designed. Go ahead next. I'm flying through this and the next. Okay, so our approvals and certifications, we're in several different countries for certifications. We just now here in Roswell got our Cayman certification. We've got aircraft that are coming in from Cayman Islands, 3 so far, from a leasing company called AirCap. But we also have Bermuda, obviously FAA, EASA, Canadian certifications. Next slide. This is kind of where we're located in Europe, in the main continent of the States. But we have a sales group over in Singapore. We have a sales group in South America. And this kind of gives you an idea of where we are on the map. Okay, that's about it. So it's a real fast go through for it, but just wanted you to know that we're a little bit bigger than just what's here at Roswell. Our company is extremely busy. Started out as a private company, and now we're traded on the stock market as a public company. So we've grown a lot in the last 14 years. Anyway, anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Randy, what do you do with the 2 locations overseas in Ireland and Wales?
So in Ireland, it's more of our leasing, asset management over there. What they do is aircraft, because we do go over and buy aircraft in Europe, in Ireland, so we have representation over there to take care of that for us. If we happen to sell aircraft from here to Europe, they will take care of that there. They do a lot of marketing for us there. They're kind of the boots on the ground there for what's going on in Europe as far as the aircraft, MRO, whatever the needs are on that side. We've had aircraft from Airfin that's shown here that started there. Contacts got a hold of the guys in Ireland. Ireland got a hold of me, and then we kind of set that up here. So it's more of a coordination group over there and a marketing side.
You said you have 640 employees overall. What is your footprint here in Roswell?
Here we've got about 160. Now, out of that 160, roughly 50 is full-time employees, 100, 110 are contracted. The 640 for AirCell, that's full-time employees though. Obviously, there's twice that many contractors between Goodyear, us, Millington, our component repair shops, that kind of thing. So you use contract workers to help you you can kind of bend your workforce a little bit. When times are slow, contractors can go away, and they understand that. They move, they go here and there. Here, Roswell's a little different. A lot of the contractors that work for us have been contractors since day one or before. They worked for AAR. Before that, I think it was Southwest Aviation. Whatever. Anyway, they work there, and they're just homesteaders, but they do not want to be direct employees because of New Mexico is very kind to people who make, who are, I guess, a contract worker who part of their salary goes to their per diem kind of thing there. So New Mexico is a good place to be a contractor, and they like it that way, so they stay that way.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Right, thank you.
All right,
Appreciate it. Appreciate what y'all doing. All right, next on the agenda is Jeff Hartz with Bean Hunt. Jeff, good afternoon. Good to see you again.
Yeah, sorry, I'm partly to blame for the delay. Change it a little bit quicker. So I don't have to. Just make it easier so I don't have to keep asking to go forward. Yeah, it will just run itself once it goes into USB. So, but yes, Jeff Hartz, I appreciate seeing you guys again. I've been working with Roswell now 5 years, 6 years. Knew Roswell before that with my Mesa Airlines days going back to 2003. So yeah, I've been coming out to Roswell for over 20 years now. And totally, don't worry about it. We can just click through them. I just figured it'd be easier than saying next, because there's a lot of slides. Next. And then next. One more. Yeah, next. So talk about a few things. One, industry trends, high level about what's going on in the industry that's affecting Roswell. We do a lot of different reports for Roswell on an annual basis. One of them is quarterly performance monitoring. Amazingly, it comes out quarterly, which is why we call it quarterly performance monitoring. And it literally came out yesterday. So we do have some information based on the first quarter that we'll go over. Our past demand analysis, which is our leakage study, tells us where people are flying out of. We finalized and sent that out to you guys a couple of months back. First meeting we've had to talk about that. We'll talk about it a little bit. And a little bit about the what we're doing over the next 6 months or a year on opportunities. Next two, skip one more. So high level, what's going on? Biggest problem, pilot crew issues. That's become a major problem, especially in the regionals. That'll be a recurring theme in this conversation that continues to be problematic. Fuel is up a lot from where it was, especially 2020, but even 2019 and before. It's stubbornly still above $3 a gallon for Jet A. That does cause a lot of extra costs. Oops, sorry, I wandered. So that is a challenge for profitability. It does make airlines a little bit more less likely to fly routes that are marginal because of the higher fuel cost. Fleet issues, which is a combination of crews and the airplanes not being delivered, is really what's causing the biggest problem right now. They don't have the crews for the regionals in order to fly what they really want to fly, but the main lines that are trying to bring in all new Boeings and Airbuses, those aren't being delivered and so those aren't able to backfill for the regionals that they're trying to overcome the pilot issues. That has actually caused a lot of problems in the last 6 months, more so than it had before. as the aircraft that Boeing and Airbus had promised just aren't coming. They're coming much slower. Next. So seat capacity wise, as everyone knows, hey, the pandemic sucked. We were down 80%, then it came up, then it kind of flatlined at about 15% down. 23, we're back to normal, except it's really not really normal. It's a tale of two worlds. Essentially, if you're a big market named Florida, or a leisure market named Florida, you're doing fine. You're doing great. You're up a lot. If you're a small market, some are up, most are down or flat, and that's pretty much the industry right now. Business markets are still struggling a little bit from where they were. If you're on the coast, you're struggling more so, unless you're named Florida, which things are really good if you're Florida. There's a trend there as well. People really want to go to Florida during the pandemic, and it's stuck, and it's really up quite a bit for that. Next slide. As I mentioned, not all be created equal. The Southeast, hey, that's Florida, they're up the most. Southwest is actually up the second most. And again, tale of two worlds on this one. Almost all of that 5% growth in the Southwest region is Dallas, is Houston, is Austin, is San Antonio. If you're not named one of those five, you're pretty much down or flat versus 2019. We fall into that category as not being named Dallas or Austin or San Antonio. So sadly, we do fall into that as well. We are trending into that negative versus 2019, large part because of the Phoenix piece, but it is a trend really that's happening across the whole industry in our size markets. At least we are not the Great Lakes region, which is down 15, 20%. Again, that is in large part because a lot of those are business markets and not a lot of leisure to them. They just haven't come back from the pandemic. Next. So as I mentioned before, regional pilot problems are persisting. Before the pandemic, there were less 50-seaters flying around, less 30-seaters flying around. The pandemic essentially just jammed on the gas to retire them. So if you ever go out to, the Amarillos or the Kingmans of the world, boy, there's an awful lot of 50-seaters sitting out there, just like we've got a lot of MD-80s sitting out here. They've all been parked out there because there aren't crews to fly them, as well as they just got old. So when you look at the percentage departures from aircraft seats, back in just 2005, almost 50% of the market was less than 50 seats. A good chunk of that was less than 30 seats. There's nothing less than 30 seats really flying in existence today domestically in the US. There's a little bit of EAS stuff, but not really. Fast forward to 2013, just 11% of all departures are 50 seats and smaller. And that is shrinking quickly as well. That is essentially going to go to zero in the next few years. 50-seaters aren't existing. The next category there is that 70-seat world. They're shrinking a bit from where they were in 2019, large part because of pilots. That and there's not a lot of new aircraft being delivered in that size. What's growing are big airplanes. Airbus, 320s, 321s, Maxes, 737s, 800s, 900s, and thousands for them. Those are growing and they're growing quickly. So that's why it's now 47% is 150 seat plus airplanes. A lot of low-cost carriers, Frontiers, Spirits of the world are growing in that. Next. Again, another look at it. This is by airline. This is important. American's highlighted on there. American versus 2019 is down 30% in seats on the regional network. They have 150, 200 cities that they serve with regional aircraft. When you're down 30% of it, it's not good. It's really actually a problem when you're especially in smaller markets like Roswell. That is essentially right there a prime example of why we lost our Phoenix service. Is they're down 30% seats, you got to take it from somewhere. And you essentially start looking at what markets did the worst. They cut those in 2020. What did next worst in 21, next worst in 22. We got caught in 23, essentially in that next worst category, essentially to come down through for Phoenix. Phoenix especially got hit hard because of the Mesa Airlines switching from American to United. They were based in Dallas and Phoenix. So when you lose a predominant Phoenix operator, that means Phoenix got hit harder than others. They're down almost 40% seats for the regional market versus 2019. Again, why that impacted us. Next slide. So one thing that, we always hear this, fares are up. We thought fares were high in 2019. They came plummeting down during the pandemic. They went up higher than that. So fares overall are 17% higher second quarter of last year versus second quarter of 2019. We really don't look at the winters because there's a lot of noise in the winters. So once we get second quarter this year, it'll be a much easier comparison to see where things are at on it. But interestingly, Roswell's fares, average fares, were only down 5% from 2019 during that period. There'll be a trend in that one. We'll see a couple of slides from here why that's important. The industry as an overall is up 15 to 20% fares. Roswell's only up 5%. And so while we're back to 2019 levels or up, we're not up as much as everybody else, which means profitability-wise, we're lagging some of our peers, which is what impacted some of the Phoenix stuff. Next slide. This is just a depressing slide. 70 markets lost service through Delta, American, United, pandemic. American was the least. They tried to take the stance of, hey, we're trying to keep everything. United, Delta were trying to just keep the core. So they cut a lot more of their regional markets. American 16, Delta 16, United was 35 markets. And of those 16 for American, more than half of markets that they didn't actually serve very long in them. So they actually really, their long-term core markets were very few they left. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the pilots, it is what it is on this one. The pandemic created a weird bubble where the airlines went, oh, we're not flying big planes to Europe. We don't want to pay them $400,000 to sit home. Let's get them to retire. It was bad when you then had the flying come back in 2 years and not 5 or 6 like everyone thought. And so they ran out of pilots. And so they started hiring. The only way to get pilots for American, Delta, United, Southwest, all those is from the regionals. The regionals couldn't hire fast enough. So they took all the pilots out. The regionals went, okay, let's start hiring like crazy. Let's up the wages. And they created a huge bubble of first officers. So the co-pilots. The problem with that became the captains at the regionals are a much smaller number than they need. The problem with that is you have to have 1,000 hours as a first officer to become a captain at a 121 airline. You can't get 1,000 hours if you're not flying. And so typically that was a year, 2, 3 months process in the past. It's taking 2, 3 years to get to that because you're only flying 30, 40 hours as a first officer because you physically don't have all the captains to fly. So you have essentially a period right now where the regionals have as many first officers they need to fly the 300 airplanes that are parked. They don't have the captains to fly what they currently have flying, much less the ones that are parked. So you're just not flying enough for that. It's a vicious cycle that they're hoping gets fixed over the next year or two, but it will be the problem. It's not a pilot shortage by any stretch anymore. It's a captain shortage. And it's, in some respects, a bigger problem because you actually have to physically keep that pilot at that job for 1,000 hours to then get trained to be upgraded to a captain spot, and there's not enough instructors and captains to make that happen. Next. Relevant for us, legacy, what's kind of going on in this. American lost, quote unquote, Mesa. Mesa essentially made a decision or the contract was canceled. They moved over to United. Ironically, at the same time, United canceled, or the contract with Air Wisconsin with United changed and canceled. They came over to American. The problem is Air Wisconsin was an East Coast and Chicago based. Mesa was a West Coast, Phoenix, Dallas based. It's hard to essentially backfill airplanes quickly because you can't just move crews and aircraft from Chicago to Phoenix because you have to literally move the crews, the aircraft, and it rebids them, which means those pilots can then change aircraft, which creates a training event, which then means those pilots aren't flying. So it becomes not a 1 month process, a 6 month to a year process to backfill all of that. So what that means is Phoenix capacity for the regionals plummeted during this, 40% for the regional for that. It's slowly coming back. Envoy opened a base up there. It will grow and get back to normal eventually, but again, it's going to take some time. United lost Air Wisconsin. Again, they're doing the same thing, but there's a big 50-seat piece. So they are really, really short on 50-seaters, which affects markets like us, as we're talking about Denver service. It's much easier to start us to Denver on a 50-seater than a 70-seater. Much less that level of passengers we need is lower at the 50-seat. They have a lot less of them. It means a little harder for us to get that service. And SkyWest continues to try they keep cutting their prorate flying, less and less of it, less EAS flying for them. They're trying to do a SkyWest charter, which is essentially running 30-seat jets under a Part 135 environment instead of a Part 121. That's been stuck in regulatory territory for 9 months. And so we don't know if it's going to be another 9 months or today that will get approved or disapproved. But that's something that has put a lot of uncertainty in the smaller regional world, both on EAS and markets like us, for new opportunities. Ultra low cost carriers growing like crazy, but they've gotten all smacked upside the head by aircraft delivery problems. Things like used market. So if you're buying aircraft in the used market, it's typically from an airline that's replacing with a new airplane. If Boeing's not delivering the new airplane to that other airline, you're not picking up a used airplane. That's affecting airlines out there, especially airlines like Capello. Breeze's Airbuses are getting delayed. Allegiant's now 737s have been delayed. So that's created this kind of this bubble of, well, we thought we were going to have growth this year. Now it's more next year for a lot of these low-cost carriers. So these will be quick slides because it's a lot of data, and I really don't want to talk about data in a big environment. So next one. Essentially for this, we're essentially got ourselves back for passenger numbers from the pre-pandemic up through obviously May with the Phoenix cancellation. We will obviously be down one with the suspension of service there. Next slide. O&D, this is comparing to the first quarter of 22 versus 23. It is, a little disingenuous because let's face it, first quarter of 22 year ending included an awful lot of 21, which was really bad for everybody. So yes, everything's up a lot in passengers for the most part on this one. So it's a little bit disingenuous in that regard. So, but the story essentially of this is Dallas was our biggest market, continues being our biggest market. It's a big local market for us. Phoenix was a big market, not as big as Dallas, but when you look at these across the board, fares were up a lot, 22%. But again, as I mentioned, when we look at our peer markets, we weren't up as much as they were through that period. Next one. Fares, again, when you look at it from an industry's perspective for the red line there with the, or sorry, I guess that's on this color on there, it's hard to tell. That's the one with the circles. The U.S. average is up. It's the highest average fare they've ever been at. Roswell's back to where we were before. Again, not necessarily up versus 2019 large numbers. U.S. though is dramatically higher than it's ever been for average fares. Next slide. Forward-looking schedules. Again, ignore essentially October and November. That's what's selling out there with American with the 3 trips to Dallas. That's not likely to stay in there just because of capacity problems with American and the regionals. It will likely stay at 2 trips through the fall with hopes that next spring, as things sort of get better for the airlines with pilots, the 3rd trip can come back in. Also, as our performance improves. One of the things we'll see in the next couple slides here, Dallas has struggled a little bit more than it has in the past, profitability or performance-wise, revenue-wise. As Phoenix got pulled to the market, it will absolutely improve Dallas because some of those passengers that were going west will go east and then go west as much as we don't want to. It will make Dallas a more profitable market, which on the upside means the likelihood of getting the 3rd trip will go up with that. As Dallas improves, as we look better compared to our peer markets, they're more likely to add more capacity to it. So seats per capita, this is one that's always important to point out. Roswell is a relatively small population when you look at the immediate Roswell area. Just looking at Roswell itself, we have by far from our peer markets the highest number of seats per person living in our area. But that's in large part because a lot of our traffic comes from Carlsbad and Artesia, which isn't, and Ruidoso and elsewhere, isn't included in the Roswell MSA micropopulation numbers. But when you look at it, we were 1.26, that was with the Phoenix. As Phoenix comes out, we will be roughly 0.75 seats per person on average. It's still above average for our peers, still in line with markets like Manhattan, Kansas, just behind a Flagstaff, Arizona. So we still have a lot of seats in the market. It does suck the Phoenix service being suspended. Do hope we get that backfilled in it, but we still have a lot of service for a market our size. Average fares, as I mentioned, when you look at peer markets, our average fare is about $247. It was actually lower than all of our peer markets when you look at it outside of Hobbs there on the left. So when we look at it, it's a little bit lower than that. That does affect some of the revenue performance overall for Roswell. It's kind of the catch-22. No one ever wants to sit there and say, hey, we want higher fares. Me as a consultant, I will, because, hey, I'm not the one that has to deal with the public complaining. But it is, in the grand scheme, better to have a little bit higher fare, to have a little bit higher profitability that helps justify more service. We never want to be negative. We don't want to be a profit or a losing market. I don't necessarily think we are, but obviously we'd want to have a little bit higher fare potentially if it was possible. Next slide. Skip that one. Next one. Skip that one too. And that one too. All right. So RASM trends, mainly because the next couple of runs on this one. So RASM is the way airlines look at revenue to try to make things equal. It's revenue per available seat miles. So if an airplane has 100 seats and it flies 100 miles, there's 10,000 available seat miles. Needless to say, in a given year, airlines are flying billions upon billions upon billions of seat miles. But it's a way essentially to compare a market that's got 1 billion seat miles in it and one that's got 1 million is how much revenue you get per seat mile. So in this case, in Roswell's, going back to 2011 through 2023, you can see the first column there. It's the RASM. We in 2013 through 2016, 23 cents, 21.5 cents, 22 cents. We're a pretty strong market on a RASM perspective. Especially when you look at Dallas and markets less than 750 miles, kind of our peer markets, they were in the 20 cents mile. We were big, we were higher than them. We had a 10, 15, 20% higher RASM than our peers. We were essentially, when I was at the airlines, we referred to it as a rock star. We really were a great market at that point. That's when Phoenix started. We had 3 trips and a 4th trip at periods for Dallas. Things were going great. When you look at it, the pandemic, started right before the pandemic, but the pandemic especially, we started cutting back below the Dallas RASM average. After the pandemic, we essentially got back to normal. The problem is, as I talked about before, the fares everywhere went up. Traffic went up a little bit, but mostly back to normal everywhere else. That means Dallas skyrocketed on those RASM numbers. So those RASM numbers are now almost 20% higher than where we're at, which is obviously not something we want to see. We want to be at the average or above the average. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind, something we'll need to watch and talk to American about is that number, and is it a concern? Is it something that we need to work on, do some marketing on, anything that we can do to try to get that number up a little bit more? Next slide. Phoenix, this is kind of the example of why Phoenix got cut. Similar looking table here. Our market, when it first started, 2017, 2018, 2019 year ending, wasn't a bad market. We were essentially right about average. We were 4% below the average for Phoenix. So really wasn't a rock star, but it's good enough to stick around. We stuck around. They tried a second trip, they went back to one trip. Pandemic happened, they obviously suspended the market, came back. Since the pandemic ended in 22 and then in 23, the market just never recovered. It didn't get the load factor quite back to where it needed to be, and the average fare just didn't take that jump. Just like Dallas through the last year and a half, it never took that 25% jump. It took a 5% jump. And when you make that, when it comes down to it, we were 20% lower than the Phoenix average. The difference was Phoenix doesn't have enough crews. Dallas has more crews. And so when they had to cut Phoenix service, they went through and started cutting what was the next worst market, Eventually they got to us, sadly, in that. And that's kind of how that happened. Next one. So we did do our update. There's only 2 slides on this one for our true market estimate and our passenger demand analysis. Essentially, hey, when people live in this area, where do they fly out? So this encompasses the Roswell, Artesia, and Carlsbad area. We chunk out and don't include Hobbs in the catchment area. So 2015, when we did this our first time, we started working with you guys, we retained 24% of the market. So essentially 3 of every 4 people left and drove elsewhere, Albuquerque and El Paso. Fast forward to today, 38% flew out of Roswell in 2022. So 4 of every 10 people flew out of here, 6 out of 10 went elsewhere. Where'd they fly out of? It actually flipped bizarrely. It's the first time we've seen this, that El Paso ended up passing Albuquerque. In large part because we saw, and you guys pointed out over lunch, a unique piece where Carlsbad flipped just slightly above Roswell as far as generating traffic. And because Carlsbad's closer than El Paso ended up being slightly more of our leaking traffic. I expect that to switch. I think that was just a weird quirk during the pandemic that will end up being more traffic and back to Albuquerque next time we do this. But again, 28% El Paso, 24% Albuquerque, 10% is other. That's a little bit of Hobbs, a little bit of Lubbock, and a little bit of Midland. But again, vast majority is El Paso and Albuquerque. Next one. So retention by market. Phoenix is like what was our top estimated market, only retained about 50% of the market. The only thing we can kind of surmise, and it'd be, I think it's black conjecture or opinions on this, would be twofold. One, it was a single round trip. One, it was suspended prior to this, so people didn't know the service potentially came back. And 2, it's not as business oriented of a market as Dallas is. And so people will be more likely to get in the car and drive to Albuquerque, El Paso to fly to Phoenix to save $30 or $40, $50 one way than it would be to Dallas because of the more business or longer term ties to Dallas. That's been my conjecture. That's my thoughts on why Phoenix has never had a higher retention rate than Dallas. Dallas typically, as we see here, about 88%. We lose very little bit. Very few people decide not to fly to here and drive over to Lubbock or Albuquerque or El Paso and fly to Dallas. Some of these other markets, Houston's our number 3 market for it. Hadn't lose a lot of it to Hobbs on that one. Los Angeles, Vegas, Denver, again, all over the place. Next one. Next. So what we've been doing and what we do for you guys, obviously we've been working for Roswell for a number of years. We do kind of twofold, threefold. Biggest piece, or the one of the pieces, is market analysis. We do a lot of reports. You saw, well, kind of try to fly through it quickly. We do monitoring. We do an airfare monitoring on a quarterly basis. That we look at what's filed fares that are out there to make sure that we're in line with our peer markets and the fares aren't too high or too low, and work with the airlines if it is. We do a true visitation estimate. That's GPS tracking, essentially seeing where people are coming from if they don't fly, just driving into the area, just so we understand, hey, coming into the area, are we seeing more traffic from Dallas that we're not capturing, or Houston, or Phoenix, or things like that? And also in the outbound portion, which has been great with conversations about Vegas service or Phoenix service, is how many people are just driving there, or Denver, they're just driving there and not flying. And then a true market estimate we just covered. We also do a lot of interfacing with the airlines. So one-on-one meetings, things like headquarter meetings virtually is sadly what's turned into it during the pandemic. Not as much in person, headquarter meetings on that. But industry conferences. Those are essentially speed dating for airports and airlines. We got another one coming up in August we're going to out in Atlantic City of all places. But again, it's a good period to be able to talk to the airlines about potential service here, talk to America about current service here, and understand where they're at, we're at, and then work our way to a headquarter meeting. So, opportunities as we look at it, the big piece that I always say is, hey, there's never low-hanging fruit in airlines. Opportunities we're looking at, Denver's our number 1 opportunity by far as far as our legacy market. We do have our SCASD grant for that as well. But again, we've been kind of stuck up against this wall of no aircraft and no crews. There are aircraft, there's no crews. But the one positive is we keep hearing now from the airlines is we see now the light at the end of the tunnel. Last year, even in January when I was last out here, we didn't have a light at the end of the tunnel. We kind of hoped, we kind of prayed at the end of this year we'd have an idea. Most of the airlines we've been talking to the last couple of months are now seeing, yes, we think or we expect it to be sort of resolved next year. It won't be back to 2019 for regionals. It never will be. 2019 will never come back for the regionals. We just want to get back to 50% of the difference, because 50% of the difference is almost 150 airplanes that would be flying for Delta, American, United that aren't today for regionals. Next slide. So market opportunities, again, Phoenix, what I would consider to be what should be a low-hanging fruit is probably not the low-hanging fruit for short term. Large part because of the suspension of service, it does airlines, it kind of puts a bad taste in some airlines' mouths of, well, if it didn't work for American, why would it work for Allegiant or Avelo or somebody else? Just because if it couldn't work on a 70-seat airplane, how could it work on a 150-seat airplane? So there'll need to be a little bit of time and effort to overcome those. But 2, it's also because it's not quite as big of a potential market for stimulating it. So when we look at it, again, Denver, as we know, that's one, especially for next year, conversation with United. But Vegas is really the next best opportunity for low-cost carriers. One of the unique pieces of it is, maybe on the next slide, go to the next one, let's see. Let's get that one. Yeah, we'll just talk about here. So Vegas is, up until 2 years ago, low fare carriers, there's one in the country to talk to that would ever serve markets of this type, Allegiant Air. For whatever reason, Allegiant never really wanted to serve New Mexico or the Panhandle of Texas. Just never has, never did. They did Albuquerque for a little bit, didn't work. They actually just left it a couple months back. And so with no one else to really talk to about Vegas, we just kind of sat twiddling our thumbs going, okay, somebody start an airline? The pandemic actually birthed 2 airlines, Breeze Airways and Avelo Airlines. And both of them now serve Vegas at a fairly decent size. Avelo actually just announced a base 2 weeks ago in Vegas. So it does now all of a sudden give us an opportunity to talk to an airline that we couldn't talk to even 6 months ago about the service. So we are going to continue conversations with them. Hopefully have another conversation with them in the next couple of months for that. Airline discussions, again, we're doing these one-on-one meetings in August at that conference. Essentially, hey, how you doing? This is who we are. Let's have some further conversations. Do we fit into with what your model is on that? Headquarter meetings, we've had a couple in the last 2 months with Avelo, and my mind just went blank, Allegiant, sorry. And we'll hopefully be able to set up some with American, likely be virtual on that one. United started talking about having meetings again this fall for new airports. They've essentially suspended that for the last 3 years because, again, you can't start them, why have the meeting? And so, again, so we're hoping that some of these things will happen there. Updating of data, again, we've done most of the data for this year. We do have the new destination data outbound to Vegas and Phoenix that we'll have for the conference in August to share. But a lot of the data essentially will now flip into next January, which will be the calendar year 2023 sets. The visitation data, the next leakage study, all that. So opportunities, one of the things, it's always the most important thing, as we found with Phoenix. The number one priority is always make sure we keep what we have. Phoenix was a quirk in some respects that the pandemic happened, we didn't quite recover. New Mexico was a little slower than a lot of the country because of the restrictions that happened during it to recover. And then the Mesa pilot thing kind of compounded that problem with American and Phoenix. So it's kind of a perfect storm there in some respects of Phoenix being suspended, not allowed to recover fully there. But we also want to just make sure Dallas improves. We want to make sure that that kind of takes that next step up. Part of the conversation will be with them is try to talk to them about the schedule a little bit. I know everybody, no one in their right mind wants to arrive at midnight. I did that last night. It's not much fun. It is kind of what it is when you only have so many aircraft and crew. They're doing the best they can, but again, we'll keep trying to pressure them or emphasize them trying to get a schedule a little earlier. Denver hopefully should be expanding with United in 2024, finally, after they've been talking about it for 5 years. So again, we'll be able to have some conversation hopefully end of this year to early next year on that. And then again, conversations about that low-cost carrier with Vegas service. That's something that really, up until 6 months ago, really was an option. Up until 2 weeks ago, really wasn't a reality because there wasn't anyone to talk to that base physically there. Now that Avelo is there, they serve markets like us. It's really kind of that first piece that we finally, of the puzzle, to be able to have those conversations. That's probably it. Yep. So, sorry, I wanted to fly through this quickly because I know we started a little bit late and there was a lot. Any questions? Yes.
You might want to look at North Pacific Airways.
Yes. So Northern Pacific, I actually know. Yeah, I know.
It opened yesterday or something.
Yeah. I know Rob McKinney very well for the last 20 years. I remember when he was literally just the chief pilot out in Hawaii in an 8-seat operation. They are trying to, they try the Trans-Pacific thing. It's obviously not going to happen anytime because of the problem. Yeah. And so as they figure it out, the problem is they have the wrong airplane for almost anything, except for what they were trying to do.
But they're only going to get some small ones.
Yeah. So as they evolve, and I assume they try to evolve themselves into an Avelo-esque, that will be absolutely an opportunity because they'll end up just in Vegas for the most part.
Ontario and Vegas right
Yeah.
now. They're looking for routes, is what I know.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're certainly looking for money, airlines like that. So
yeah, they got a weird way of looking for money.
Yeah, and so that's where it's just a challenge to try to weigh it. On a 7.5, we burn through. It would be a disaster. It's an expensive airplane. It's a big airplane. We definitely want to try to keep ourselves into that 150, 160 seat, not 200 plus seat range. Just because of the size of our market, it's there peaks 2 or 3 months a year. We can make that work. It's that other 9 that we're making on something like that. But yeah, as they evolve, absolutely.
I know they're looking for routes. So.
Yeah. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate it, and hopefully next time I come, it won't be 112.
Hasn't got there yet.
It's supposed to, so you know.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Move on to item 7, which is the Air Center operations report. Jennifer.
So we've got our passenger boardings, our Dallas boardings for last month, 3642. This is May. Phoenix, we ended up with 4 days of 148 before we lost our flight. for a total of $37.90. Our operations is down from 22, the 2,068 versus the 2,489. The number of aircraft that we currently have parked are also down from last year. We have 233 versus 286. Then our revenues. Last month I reported April. I was given May and June today. June, we took a hit, and our net income is negative. We were asked to move some money from capital to cover some other expenses. And we wanted to connect them into the year. Our reports. Okay, we've got our FAA AIP project, which is the hold bars. They will begin installing July 31st. It will be somewhere around 25 days of calendar days of installation. The FAA ELD project is still going on. They're still having some issues with contractors, but they should have drilled under the South Hammerhead today. We've got the TSA emergency exercises, part of our agreement. That will be conducted next Wednesday on the 19th. It's a full scale. Will involve all law enforcement agencies and fire. And our deadline to complete this is August 3rd, so we'll get it done prior to. The state appropriation projects. We met with the county Friday, and we will start working with Lewis to get the next phase of the extension of Southeast Water Line extension for getting that to the county so they can get approval so we can move along with that. The master plan, I've received one set of working papers back. So waiting, I sent another email out. FAA is looking at their portion of it and haven't heard from the rest of the tech. So I'm going to have to start pushing them so we can get that moving along. Now, we had heard, and Jeff, you might, the flight schedule change for October.
Yeah.
Are we still on for one?
No, it's 2 trips.
We're going to 2 trips. We're gonna stay at
Yes,
the
they got 2 trips.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Because what we had heard was 1 flight, so no changes there. And then we did have meantime was here May 27th, 28th. Laura Dementra was made it, and so we visited with her about terminal expansions. Unfortunately, we couldn't get her behind the scenes because our flight was delayed. And the ADB project, I've been talking with the state aviation. I believe they're going to fund my project. And so we'll probably be moving along with that soon.
That's that total amount that we project.
550. So I think they've agreed, or they're looking at it very hard to fund it, because they know we've been having issues. Yes, sir.
Will there be any conflict with operations on the airport during your exercise?
No. Everything's gonna happen on land side.
Okay, so
We're not-
no vendors are going to be bothered by this.
All right, update on the auto hangers. I've spoken to Cayman Carter. He'd asked if I would like him to draw up a land lease. I deferred and said, no, we would like to provide the land lease, but he would like to come out and visit the site prior to making a commitment to where that location is going to be, because we are putting the drainage and grading responsibility on him, so he wants to understand that picture a little bit better. I'll be sending some photographs over to him about the current location that's in the overflow parking across from the terminal that we had designated for him, and we'll continue to move forward. He's looking to have that done sometime in the fall. Since they're already pre-manufactured, it shouldn't take very long once decisions are made, and he's aware of our lease process as well, that it will take 60 to 90 days to get that done, primarily 60. Since it's just a straight land lease, I don't see us running into any issues.
How many, Jenna, are going to be put in?
12 units initially.
The South Hammer is still on hold until the FAA can get the ELG project completed. We didn't want to do our work on the South Hammer and then come in and bore underneath it. So as soon as they're done, we'll start up on that project and get that completed. I think they're anticipating being done first part of August. Passenger parking lots. We are, Schedule 1 is, which will be the main parking lot, is not commenced yet. Schedule 2 is 88% complete. 3 is 15% complete, so we have an overall percentage of, we're at 51%. So we should hopefully be done at the end of August. And go ahead. The strategic plan RFP is going to council Thursday night. And currently it's sitting on consent agenda. Nothing exposed.
The Waterline infrastructure update, we're done with phase 1, according to Lewis, and we did put a map up of where phase 2, which is what Jennifer was talking about, working with the county to go forward with. So all of the blue line is complete. We're looking at the orange line next for a portion of phase 2.
Do we have cost estimates for that?
Not yet. That's what I'm working with those on.
That's tied to some of that money that Mayor got.
Yes.
There's a time frame on that too.
There is one more year. We have 1 year left to complete this,
Yeah,
so
so we gotta get
we're
moving
gonna
on
be
that.
I'm gonna be pushing Lewis.
Okay.
Okay. And then our report on the baggage area. We've got a conference call or Zoom call set up with Swanson Link. We'll be Lynn Armstrong, myself, and them to discuss a new mail belt. Using the $2 million that we were allocated to enhance the baggage area. So hopefully next month I'll have a better hopefully on that.
A cheer will go across Roswell when we have the baggage here, right? So
I have.
add to the voice. Okay, thank you.
All right, next slide, please. We have one other building that is vacated, General Airframe Support, and I knew this would probably be coming, but they've moved their offices from 730 to over to their warehouse building. So I'm aware that that was going to happen. They did turn the property back over to me and clean, it's about perfect condition as far as that goes. There's a couple items that probably just need some cosmetic work, but I plan on showing that to a prospective tenant next week. So hopefully we'll get that one or 733 rented to that tenant. They'll be looking at both of them. Everything else has kind of remained the same. I did meet with Cisco and the EDC briefly today. So we're planning to start putting, basically from what I understood from him is when we go out or if he's sending sheets out, we kind of get knocked off the list by not having any sort of lease rate range for them. So he and I will start working to, along with you, to set some rates for some of these vacant properties, just to give a beginning number. He has a sheet also that states the items that need to be done to those buildings. So when EDC engages with a prospective tenant, they're able to say the rate is here, but these are the things that we need to overcome based on whatever your operation is to get that building functional for your need. So I'm encouraged that we have moved forward a little bit there today to basically help the airport with some of the outside opportunities that can't be captured while we're doing other projects here with infrastructure and internal workings at the air center right now.
Hey Jenna, is it possible maybe for next meeting or something, you can get a map and just put where these buildings
Vacant
are?
areas, you bet.
So people get visual awareness, because when you talk building numbers,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sure.
33, sure.
yeah, it's a great idea.
We would do that.
Mike, quick question, which one of those buildings was, next to a health department, actually?
611.
611, that 1,800 square foot, 18,000 square foot building.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, questions?
This is an updated lease summary from last month. We have moved a couple of the leases and or renewal negotiations forward. So you can see the total number of active leases we have are 95. They are broken down by category, whether they're landside, airside, land lease, or general aviation, where they're at in the queue for coming forward. So I anticipate a couple more leases coming forward in the next 6 months for you. We are making a little bit of a transition to get a little bit of a longer term commitment from some of the tenants so that we don't have small leases coming in front of you regularly, so we can kind of mainstream those commitments a little bit. You'll see one of those today that I present. So I think we have made significant progress in this department in the last 6 months.
Any questions, commissioners? Thank you. Moving on, action item number 17, Taboo Aerospace lease renewal.
Perfect. So this is an item that we brought to the table last month. I'm bringing it back to the table. Mr. Hancock and I and Jennifer have had a chance to reconvene and discuss options on their acreage. So we're asking to your recommendation for Kabu Aerospace to enter into a lease renewal request for the land parcel of 8 acres with teardown pad located at the Roswell Air Center. This is a 5-year renewal, and it is one of 2 of the renewals that they have based on the assignment from ATS's leases. And the renewal will increase with an annual rent amount of $49,611.84, due monthly in installments of $4,134.32, making that parcel 14 cents a square foot. Again, like I said, this is a renewal. If you go to the next slide, this is the reallocation. The initial 8-acre spot was over here to the left in just a straight square. ATS had planned on adding a building to that crench pad. It's unusable space for Kabu, and so we redesigned the 8 acres to fit their operation better, and so this is the new acreage plot.
Commissioners, questions? Brian?
Moving on.
Are you happy with this?
She said she'd kill me if I said it.
Not.
So we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. So we have motion and second to approve item number 17, which is the Cab Aerospace lease renewal for the land parcel of 8 acres. Comments, questions? Hearing none. All in favor of approval? To move.
Aye.
Do we have a second?
Uh-oh.
Did you already say it and I wasn't paying attention?
Yeah.
Thank you. Will this go to legal to consent or will it go to?
It'll go to legal and then they'll determine, most of the leases wind up on consent from there, but that's their determination.
Okay, all right. Congratulations, Brian. Thank you for being part of us. All right. Item 18, consider approving the Kavu Aerospace lease renewal for building 1770.
Perfect. So this is to consider recommending Kavu Aerospace to enter into a lease renewal request 2 of 3 for building 1770 located at the Roswell Air Center. This is also an assignment of leases from Erdman. So this was built into that assignment. Kavu is requesting this is a 5-year lease term beginning August and ending in July of 2028. We need this one before it expires.
How about that?
That's awesome. So this lease renewal is increased with an annual CPI, currently 3.7 from last year. The new rent amount will be $20,192.49, due in 12 monthly installments of $1,682.71. With this building being rated at $2.30 per square foot. If you'll go to the next slide, you can see this building is located in the center of the airfield. It's at the AOA area, at the intersection of the majority of the stored aircraft on the concrete pads of the closed runway.
Brian?
No questions?
Well, it happened twice in one day. That's pretty good. All right, thank you. Commissioners? Entertain a motion?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And move on to item number 19, please. The Walker Aviation Museum 5-year lease agreement.
Perfect. So this is one that I am stating that we're moving more from a year-over-year lease to a 5-year agreement. This provides some assurances for the Aviation Museum to make a business plan or a good model for what they need to have done in the future. So we're asking that you consider recommending Walker Aviation Museum to enter into a lease for an area of 950 square feet in the terminal. 930 square feet in the terminal. This will be a 5-year lease beginning August and of 2023 and ending in July of 2028. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord the rent sum of $4,064.10 annum, payable in 12 monthly installments, $338.67 for the first year, and then this will be on an accelerator of 3% or CPI, whichever is greater. We did increase their rent from last year to the current CPI 3.7, providing that they are now paying $4.37 per square foot. And if you'll go to the next slide, this just shows the location of where the Walker Aviation Museum is. They've done a great job servicing our flights. I do see a lot of traffic increase going down through. Mr. Sherman is here if you have any questions for him, but we were able to walk through this lease easily and very well.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Any comments or?
No, we just are pleased to be there. I'm raised here, and people come in and constantly have people coming in with their grandfather or their father was here, and it's just it's a real positive thing. I get positive feedback from, say, 98% of the people coming in. We're there, and we're trying to build up a few things. We're trying to get, we have added some other issues. We've got some pegboards on that concrete wall so we can actually move pictures around easier than the reinforced concrete. And that corner room is accidentally turned kind of into a storage room again. We've got another storage area since we had the flood. It's a U-Haul place. But we're trying to turn that corner room into a, quote, Atlas room. We had a control panel in there and have a bunch of Atlas pictures and stuff, so people can go into that as a separate thing from the aircraft. But basically, we're still working. 50% of our mission is with the school kids and STEM career orientation. And we're trying to work with all the schools, home schools, whatever, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Anyway, that's kind of what we're doing. We've got about 15 board members on now.
And you're content with the conditions of the lease?
You what?
You're content with the conditions of the lease?
Yes. Jen and I had a meeting, worked it out.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners? Move approval. We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second? Second. And we have a second. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, congratulations, Mr. Sherman, and we'll move on to the legal committee on this lease. Moving on to item number 20. Kurt Becker, lease for a T hanger. Jenna.
Go to the next slide, please. Awesome. This is to consider recommending Kurt Becker to enter into lease for T hangar space 120-4. This will be a 1-year lease beginning August 1st of 23, ending July 31st, 2024. The space consists of 1,175 square feet. There was a CPI increase of 3.7% over last year's lease, and the annual rent will be $3,056.50, payable in 12 monthly installments of $254.71. And you can look at the next slide, but it's not a great exhibit. It's the two T hangars buildings that are on the north end, close to hangar 85. They have a total of 10 spaces.
Is Mr. Becker here?
He is not here.
How many T hangars do we have vacant currently?
2.
2 out of 10?
2 out of 10.
There's 10 spaces in it too. Each space is 1,175 square feet.
There are 4 that are 1,175, and the rest of them are 1,002.
Commissioners? Motion for approval. So we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Move this forward to the legal committee. Item number 21, Carlton Walker, Board T hangar space 119. Yes.
Right, so this is a little bit of a sweet repeat from Kurt Becker, but Carlton Walker is requesting to enter into a lease agreement for T hangar space 119-2. This one is a smaller T hangar consisting of only 1,002 square feet. For 1 year, August of 2023 to July of 2024, the tenant agrees to pay the landlord as a rent sum of $2,606.39 annually, payable in 12 monthly installments of $217.20. This new rate also was increased by CPI 3.7, making the T hangars at $260 a square foot.
Thank you, Jen.
And Mr. Walker is not here, but he did visit with Lisa and I think twice in the last 2 weeks.
He's intended for the contents of the lease.
Yes.
Commissioners? Second. We have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. So that's the legal counsel on Carlton Walker. Item number 22 is the approval of the FY24 operational service under 60,000 for, so it appears like 3 vendors.
Yes, sir.
Jennifer?
We have 3 vendors. I will need a vote separately on each of them, but Geneva's cleaning service for the terminal, annual RFP on that was $106,751. She's also has the cleaning service for the ILEA building at $90,577. And then we have currently 2 temporary employees, laborers through Elwood Staffing, and that is $70,200.
Is that an annual contract?
That's an annual, yes.
That was 70,000.
70,200.
And what are the services do they perform?
They're laborers out on the landside, mostly landside. We have 4 employees on this side. 2 of one's an electrician, the other one's his helper. 2
Do they do like mowing?
mowing and lights, they everything on this side. The other 2 strictly work on one side.
And it wouldn't be less expensive to hire those?
The short answer is,
They say the attorney could do it all week.
sure,
Yeah, you're right.
I'll
Get a little sense.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's that if we're paying $20 an hour, we're tagging on another $9.50 for benefits and insurance.
Which one does that?
Well, me being their employee, they share a lot, they carry a lot of the burden that you don't have to, right? So.
Fire that, all right.
Was that what the only one that provided an RFP?
Those are the only ones that we have currently.
Okay, I'm speaking from
Which one?
a staffing perspective, because we have several staffing companies. Are they the only staffing company that submitted?
No.
No? Okay, that was my question. I don't need to know the others. I know the art.
Yeah. So if I just get a vote on each of those separately, please.
Sure. Commissioners, motion for approval of, or not, Geneva's cleaning services on the terminal.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm so sorry. I should have asked for discussion or questions from anyone. Sorry.
What was the change in that from a year ago?
Say it.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, sorry, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on to 22B, cleaning service, Geneva's cleaning service for ILEA.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That's approved. Move on to item C, Elwood Staffing Vendors, 70,200. Commissioners.
So moved. Second.
Sounds like a record, broken record here, right? So, thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any not happy with that, say nay. Let's move on. Thank you very much. Moving on to the committee. Item 23, approval of the capital budget list.
In your packet, we have to provide a list of projects to the city council. And so I have gone through here, and there was a list of projects that some didn't seem as be ranked as high as they should, or I don't even really know why they're on here, but I adjusted this list. These are what I would consider projects that I need to go forward with. I believe, according to the resolution, you guys get to help me pick what's important here. So the first ranking for 24 was the Southeast phase 2 water line development. The second one, I'm ranking the BLM taxiway.
Okay, Madam Clerk, before you move on, that water line development, didn't the state, didn't we obtain additional funding to complete that? So is there really anything else that needs to be approved for that?
Council has to recommend those projects and move forward.
Mr. Chairman, so that's what you said, the CIP, construction capital, I think this, that is
The third project I did list, we don't have the funding for it, but it would be the parking lot does not have, the current parking lot's getting built, does not have lighting. And so I've ranked that as number 3. A backup terminal, generator for the terminal was 4. Terminal expansion 5, and airfield lighting bulb replacement is 6. You all like to discuss this?
Well, my first thing is the water line shouldn't be the #1 project for the airport. Like, your lighting, bulbs and all that would come way ahead of that.
We are asking, I'm asking the FAA to change one of the projects to build that vault.
Yeah, I mean,
It'll be an AIP project.
we have a water line on here when we got.
The water line, and we can't develop the southeast line.
You got enough water out there to develop in the near future, trust me, because there's nothing gonna happen. The tanker base to you, the taxiway would be more important.
And that is.
Would be a #1 need. Because that helps operations in general. That's one thing we can actually do to improve it, and of course, your lighting involves. And, would be more important. I just don't see how the water line would be a whole project. Any thoughts on that?
Well,
You know, the EDC strongly recommended that to the governor. Gosh, it's been 2 or 3 years ago when she was here, and they made quite a commitment to try and fund all of that for the long-term future of the airport.
You know, if we can't even get one hangar built, what makes you think we're gonna have future development on the southeast?
Because people will bring investment, do that themselves if we've got a site that's developed and ready to build on. Was the long process.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. But
And
we have
we
sites
do
that-
have the funding for it, so it's just a matter of getting our collectively, get these things that we talked about.
And I get it, but we almost have some developed, and that's what food grants.
Yes.
So, and I thought part of the water line funding was to go for developing the hangar. What happened to that?
Well, it depends on which city council is recommending for it.
No, I get that, I get it, it's fault. But,
Well, the main thing to remember is the governor did, and the state did allocate funding for that project on the southeast, or southwest, whatever, the southeast side. And we're obligated to live up to that promise. And our mayor made that promise to the governor, I think.
I did that, but, you know, just my own person, that's a water line development. I mean, the development out there, I understand that, that's great to have, where it's at now is great, it's always great to put infrastructure in. But we can't even put infrastructure in right across Earl Cummings Road. I mean,
And I understand what you're saying. I don't know if we can repurpose those funds that the governor has allocated to us.
You only have 1 year left.
That's the problem. And we have to finish the project and expend those funds before it expires in a year.
I understand.
So I think the city council, was it 2 years ago, kind of concurred with that.
Well, there was a one time, and I believe this is $5 million, right? I thought part of it was for the water line, part of it was for developing some type of structures on the airfield.
And again, There are others that had a different feeling along those lines, but the council's final decision was the water line extension. Is that correct? It's not only the state anything.
Yeah, the idea with the county was to put it down.
So they got it where I thought it was originally supposed to go.
Well, then they received an additional $5 million.
Yeah. So there's more than one.
Oh, yeah, oh, sorry, yeah.
So there's two tranches.
Yeah, we got another 5 million last cycle, which was.
So it's actually.
That's right,
Yes.
well,
And then some of that
we already
was diverted to over there, but,
I think there's only 7 million.
yeah, there's 7 million.
And that's it.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was 10, some of it got diverted from the initial thing for that project.
Right, that never, that is where it's really close to the infrastructure, but yeah.
But-
Water line, out.
Well, without giving you a name, there's a group that is in discussions with my office and Mr. Screechen's office, and that space is just not big enough for them. We're talking about 5 hangars.
Yeah, we're talking about a pretty large hangar project.
Yeah.
But suffice to say that the original $5 million from the governor's office was the county.
Right. And 2 was going to the water
Right.
line, and 3 was gonna go to something.
Right.
For infrastructure for a hangar.
Well, and the state was gonna recapitalize that money for that back to the county to add on to the infrastructure. Another additional $4 million.
Do we know how much of that 5 million is expended toward the water line project already?
It was 2 million, just a little over
Just 2 or
2.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a little more than half of it left.
Yeah.
for the project now.
Yeah. And the second $5 million was from the state of Roswell, the mayor's office that obtained that. So the city and the county both pulled together to get that up to that 10 million mark.
Right.
And that almost 3 million for the water line for that other project was replenished by the state. So I mean, it's not
Get that.
It's just, but it was all promised by the governor, to the governor by the city and the county pledged to do this type of project.
Well, and I think with what you're putting forward, is that you're trying to get this to the city council to go ahead and move forward with. You're not asking for more money from
No,
the state.
exactly. I just need to get it on that list,
Right.
and these are our
Let's
top
get it done.
projects. I also feel very strongly that we are going to be funded for the tanker place.
Taxiway? Yeah, that too is pretty important.
So
That
I need those on those
helps
lists.
the whole airport flow. Even though we'll have water out here.
I'm not swimming.
Well, put a swimming pool in, I just, I get it, the development, but I have not seen anything that convinced me that utilities past, I mean, future development, I get it, I think anytime the utilities industry has got money, put them in, but geez.
Well, the basic fundamentals when it comes to economic development, if you will, in this respect, is getting the infrastructure in place so you can deliver, so you can create the hangars. Because that's the big part of the cost. Back to what John said, if you're not shovel ready, you're gonna be a year, 2 years out, and you're gonna miss out on the opportunity.
But we have sites that are shovel ready pretty much right now on this facility, and we can't seem to put a building up.
We have a fairly new shovel-ready site that's been certified through Excel Energy, through their, it's on the land side, it's not on the airfield side.
Well, I get it, I just thought, well, I just maybe not.
All right, any more discussion? Commissioners?
Well, we need to weigh item 3, the airport, for the lighting, I guess, versus the vault replacements.
Well, are you thinking the vaults would be more important than the lighting?
Well, they deal with the lighting of the taxiway.
Yeah, no, anything anything for the taxiway lighting, that's no brainers. To me, those are safety items that are important.
But you have that as number 6.
I have that as number 6 because I feel like it is going to be funded by the FAA. And by going and asking for money to reduce, our projected cost down.
And the backup generator would be for this terminal.
We do run into an issue with, our security doors when the power goes out here. So when power goes out here, the bag locks lock, and we have had the instance where an aircraft was arriving and the passengers couldn't get off the airfield, and we couldn't get the other passengers onto the airfield. So a backup generator is important for us.
Harbor Freight.
I do have one question, Jennifer, is, excuse me, is item 7, which is the light sign replacement project that we talked about last month for that presentation.
That is not the one we talked
It's not
about. That's
it?
not ADB.
What is this one?
This one is on the main runway. Once we start touching those lines out on the main runway, that would be a huge, FAA project. We have to put the lines in. Right now, currently, we're got the mod to keep them out.
Right.
Oh, they're too far? They're too wide?
Right now, they're non-standard. Yeah.
B-52s.
And we kept them for that way
Right.
for our test companies.
Tell them we're still operating.
So
I'm still flying here.
that'll be the last thing I'd like to touch, is that main runway.
Yeah,
Once
I
we
agree.
do, we bring those lights in.
But if I was to rate it, I would probably put, waterline number 6. Tanker base taxiway number 1, and lights in between. And the parking lot lights, I think, are important too, because that makes people warm and fuzzy and safe. And they feel like they got some lights and they're not running through southeast New Mexico to their car at midnight, wondering what's out there. But it's pretty lit up out there even from the other parking lots. We could put lights on. Harbor Freight again, lights. And a generator.
So, let's get this back on track. So commissioners,
6 items.
would you like 6 items? Would you like to renumber them? Does it matter? Does it, I mean, it's not impacted by funding, it appears.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's just.
So,
yeah, I get you.
what do we mean by renumbering them?
Nothing.
By points. So, any other comments or discussions? Okay, hearing none, commissioners, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none. Please pass that on to the legal committee. Okay, thank you.
And my last item is operational policies and procedures. I've just made some minor changes to this policy. What we have found is none of our lieutenants have this policy in their file. So the minor changes I've made were just changing from manager to director. I did make one change in here because it did talk about depositing a $25,000 cashier's check for each aircraft out here. So it is just going to be one check because nobody's ever given us more than one. And it's just for the business or the owner. So they will provide one $25,000 cashier's check that we will keep as a deposit to ensure that they pay their rent, to remove the property when they dismantle it from the airfield. Once that's done, we receive it back. But yes, we found that we have none of these in They were all there when I left, but came back and gone.
Oh, this was taken out, or was it forever?
We can't find any policies. The last one we found was pertinent.
We're not able to find any executed policies.
So I just made some minor changes, but I want approval on it, so I'm going back.
My question is $25,000 too much or not enough?
It has seemed to be enough so far. In all these years that this policy's been in effect, and that's been since 2005.
Okay. Commissioners, have you had the opportunity to read this?
Well, is this the same one that was handed out a month or 2 months ago? There was something I'd asked our counselor about.
Oh, the
parking.
The rules and regulations? Yeah, the legal committee amended that to 1 to 5 and 1 to 3 at your request.
So it was different than this one.
Yeah, sorry, let me say, the operating procedures are gonna be passed as a resolution. It's just the day-to-day doesn't carry the force of law. Rules and regulations will carry the force of law for our TSA.
Thank you, sir. So moved.
Yes, we have a motion to accept the operational policies and procedures. Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Since you did your fast reading. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Thank you. So, recommend those be approved for adoption. All right, this takes us to commission comments for future agenda items. Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, somehow it would be so helpful to get this agenda with all the attachments out 48 hours before the meeting, so there's adequate time to review items. A number of these were not out last night. You know, we just can't do a thorough job, I think, like we're committed to do without that time. I would really hope to encourage the city to use an electronic system, so you don't have to, you know, every email you send out says, don't print. But look at all this paper, that's just a waste.
I have changed stock.
Yes, isn't there a requirement because of the Meetings Act, you have to have this documents prepared by that date, or what's the?
It has to be posted 72 hours in advance.
All these documents?
Just the agenda.
Just the agenda. I just want to make sure we understand that. But.
Yeah, well, and 72 hours is the minimum. The Open Meetings Act doesn't actually, it actually contemplates 10 days before when possible.
Sure.
Right.
Mr. Chair, to the members, I believe the Airport Commission has some rules that cover themselves, correct? So in your own policies, you could make it a requirement. As far as document, one of the challenges on such a big agenda sometimes is if you try to cram too many items, staff at adequate time to prepare, I might not have those items in there. So if you have a window, for example, 72 hours in your policy, in your rules of how you govern yourself, you require there that all supporting documentation will be a part of the agenda packet within 10 hours. Then staff may have the opportunity to say, you know what, to the chair, we might not be able to, include this item because we don't have enough time. So the agenda might get smaller. So that might be an option for you all to consider.
Commissioners, thoughts? I've not seen a policy or bylaws or, I haven't seen anything like that. Is there such a document?
Well, the simplest thing you do is you just make it a standing rule of the committee, and that's under Robert's rules takes a 2/3 vote.
However, I believe the city council did adopt a
There's a
resolution for creating the airport commission.
Right, and that just says it will follow the OMA.
Right, and again, it could be amended to include that sort of provision.
Okay, thank you. Where's your will, commissioners? I know that, I do know that when you do have a lot of stuff, it is somewhat challenging for staff sometimes to collect all the time, but I also appreciate the fact that it's very difficult to be prepared at commission level to be able to vote, make recommendations if you don't have information before.
And the whole purpose of our reviews is to support the legal and finance committees, so they're not burdened with triple the amount of paper they're already looking at. So it just breaks down if we're not given time to really do a good review.
So you had a recommendation, Commissioner?
And again, I want to be reasonable. 48 hours would be a whole lot better than what we've had. But the staff needs to help with input with what you believe you can do.
Well, we're trying. We're down one person. Jenna's doing 2 jobs. So we're hoping we'll get somebody to apply for the job who can help us out.
And show up.
And I do want to, the airport is looking for its next property manager, so if you guys know anybody you think would be a good fit, we would love to get to know them.
And you just volunteer.
Jen in particular would love to get that offer.
Okay, commissioners, so we have a thought of 48 hours prior to the meeting. What are your thoughts?
I think the staff does a heck of a job putting together what they put together. And I think if that works for them, I'm okay with it, but I would defer that to, what's their comfort level, so.
Okay. Jenna, that's the work.
I think a 48-hour rule is fine, as long as there's some forbearance while we have a vacancy. I mean, you saw the amount of research that has to go into even compiling the documents to get the history for it to make sense to you. That takes a lot of time to put together. So I don't have a problem with it. Truthfully, it will help even the property manager going forward. I mean, once we have abstracts and everything built for you, then we're able to just move them forward through legal. It's just been difficult without having an additional support to do that work. So I would concur that 48 hours is a fair request.
I would entertain a motion, commissioners, to change. Oh, it's not action item?
You can just discuss it.
Oh,
No, it's not it's an internal policy. It's not actually a OMA issue.
You're just asking us
Okay,
to implement.
So is it agreed that we would like to see that internal created? Staff to
Best efforts to provide
48 hours prior?
48 hours prior.
Okay. We all good then?
I do have one item I'd like to, we've been talking about this JPA for a while. There's some legal complications to lead me to think that's not what I'd like to recommend to you, but I prefer to speak to you privately about how we move forward. And the short answer is we need a true legal successor if we're going to honor the TSA agreement and have the feds off our back. And authority is the better option. And I've had, without going into it more, it's not,
And that's what was originally proposed.
And as far as the records of the city are concerned, the resolution of the council in 2020 to create an authority was never undone. So that is still the official position of the governing body.
Interesting.
That little report that was.
I've not heard that either. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, so, but like it's there has to be a true legal successor or we're really half-assing the TSA.
So you recommend that we have an executive session or?
Yeah, we have an or I can meet with you privately at your convenience just to talk about the pros and cons and how you might want to see it structured for drafting purposes.
Well, why don't we have an executive session next month with Mr. Kunkles here? He's the chairman of the commission.
I'm trying to avoid that guy.
You want that decision to be made now.
Yeah, if we can make it, he has these thoughts and plans and he makes me write stuff.
I do too, but not as many. Okay, let's do that. We'll put that as an executive session item to discuss next month's meeting, so we can talk about it overall here. Or how you want to work, however you want to handle that.
Yeah, executive session.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Anything else, commissioners, for next meeting? Okay. Let's see. Public comment? I'm sorry, should put my glasses on first. Reports, announcements, anyone else? Members of the staff, Jennifer,
I'm
your team?
just going to let you know, we have Boeing scheduled in here September 6th, 2 to 3 weeks, 120
Going, next.
2 to 7,
Cool. I'll write one second.
79.
It's.
79.
What are the dates?
We just said it 2 to 7, September 6th,
No.
2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks. You went one year.
He didn't say, just said 2 to 7.
Yeah. Yeah. 7.
Shouldn't be a problem with the meeting we had this morning, right?
No.
Or the other meeting we had yesterday, right? But not the meeting we have tomorrow. All right, any other comments, from your team? From the Air Center team? Thanks for all your work here today, appreciate it. Did you have something, Jeff?
I just want to confirm when the next meeting will be, since we had a change this month, next month it will be the first week of August, is that correct?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm
We
not.
changed because of the holiday.
Right, I just wanted to confirm we're doing next.
The first Tuesday is August 1st.
Oh, that's.
It's like tomorrow.
First Tuesday, yeah, August 8th.
August 1st.
First Tuesday, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Jennifer, I thought the airport commission was going to adjust their meeting date to coincide before NEGO, so that the items could go from the airport commission to NEGO to council.
That's what we did.
Is that April, August 1st would not coincide?
Everything that's on this goes to this month legal. Yes, but
I know,
that's because we moved it. But finance meets first.
On August 1st.
Yeah.
That's why it normally is.
When would be your regular meeting for the airport commission?
First Tuesday is what.
NEGO meets what is it?
The last.
Yes.
The third Tuesday.
Third Tuesday.
Fourth Tuesday.
Fourth Tuesday.
Fourth Thursday.
Fourth Thursday, which is, so you're meeting at the beginning of the month, and then they meet before.
We've had to adjust.
So you council or two? Well, that-
Yeah, everything goes to council that comes from here. Goes to
We
legal
start
council.
at 2 o'clock.
So are you trying to go from the airport commission to legal?
Yes.
Yes.
That's our
When does?
instructed.
Legal meets on the 27th.
Okay, so you've covered it for this month.
Yeah.
And if we meet on the 1st of August, then that will be before, right? Not this month.
Your items in August 1st will not go to the council until September.
Right.
Is
If
that
you're going to legal from here, you're not gonna get to the city council meeting.
So
So
September.
if we
Right,
adjust
right.
our meeting days to the second Tuesday.
Still goes to September. Still goes to September.
Right, it still goes September.
Yeah.
It still works out the same.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if we have it on the 1st,
Because
the
legal's
2nd,
the
or
fourth
the 3rd.
Thursday, so it's the last
If
Thursday.
we're
so
going
last
to
Thursday.
A,
We have to go with permits.
It's all about going
Yes.
to legal.
the legal is.
They really
have to.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
September, so no matter if it's first or second.
It really is just standard form,
No.
approved, stamped.
It goes here.
Thursday.
We have our meeting first Tuesday with finance. That, and then it goes to council.
None of them we talked about today.
Yeah, we can, now we can talk. Those guys don't have anything.
Okay.
No, we're not.
Actually, everything we talked about today was legal ordinances. The last Thursday of July. Right?
And then Hearts, H-O.
So everything has.
And then it's August, and then the city council in August,
They have nothing to tell you.
Because legal hasn't happened yet in July, right? Legal doesn't happen, legal doesn't happen.
Okay, so we.
Seventh July.
I can't do one.
No.
I think for August, that's where it's kind of, it's so early in the month. We're okay for these leases, it's a council in August. We're fine with
Typically, that would
that.
normally happen after.
We're always gonna be in the month because we're never gonna hit it. So why don't we just leave it at August first Tuesday as, that's right after, yeah, that gives me enough time to do what we need to do.
Could we move our start time to 2 o'clock?
Do you know about the best friend?
Yeah, I'm not the chairman.
He's not here. He didn't get a lunch today.
I don't have an issue. Let's take a poll the other commissioners.
Yes.
I didn't do.
Well, they used to be the second Tuesday, but then, like,
Yeah.
until you guys changed it to the first Tuesday. So that's why it might have been on the.
See, I'm not having on August first on my calendar already.
Yeah, we were meeting the second Tuesday and then you guys changed it to the first Tuesday and then I think at a point you might have went back to the second.
But when you say you guys, it must have been outside of meeting because that hadn't happened.
No,
Since
no,
we
it did
went
happen,
to the second
you were
Tuesday.
remotely in.
Mm-hmm.
It did happen, you were remotely in.
I
I do recall, it did happen.
First
We
Tuesday,
should go back and look at the minutes.
2 p.m. First Tuesday at 2 p.m. We're gonna stay with the first Tuesday. Will you schedule allow that? If not, you call in, if not, yeah. I mean, the one of the three
Finance.
This went back and forth a few times. But when we were to go back to the first, that's when that happened.
Something comes back and they say, well, we moved it just so we, I think we was in third and did it.
Fun district, we've been there for 23 years now, so.
It's on August first. I never moved, it's been like, I can read the time.
You okay with that?
You okay with the change? You okay with the change?
2 o'clock?
Sure. John, you okay with the change? So first Tuesday at 2 p.m. Okay, so our next meeting is August 1st at 2 p.m. here, right? Okay. Next meeting. Okay, anything else for, anything else?
I agree with you.
Anything else you want to change, it's budget out here.
Will be.
Okay, any of our guests, Mike, Tim, thanks for being here, thanks for the support, as always. What have you done for us lately? It's not done yet. Cool.
50% done.
50% done. Thanks, while you work on that.
Yeah.
Jeff, anything else? No. Mr. Sherman, anything else from you?
Nothing me.
Yeah.
So you're retiring, right? The end of July, like in just a couple of weeks?
Last
That's right.
Last meeting? Thanks for your work.
Gonna be sipping pina coladas at the beach or somewhere.
Don't quiet.
Good for you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Commissioner Cavan?
I would just say thank you for the time that's spent by the commissioners and staff for all the hard work you guys do. You guys done a good job of picking up the reins, over the last, 9 months. I know that you guys are still seeing there's more work to be done, so thank you guys for everything that you're doing for us as citizens and taxpayers. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Is that city attorney in Roswell?
You flatter me.
You're not the only city
You can only
attorney, so-
say that because my predecessor only moved this week.
Did you get a new attorney?
Ouch.
Oh, I thought you said you got the pass.
Has any comments? So we can turn.
Feel free to razz on more.
Will that be the headline tomorrow, Waterway to Nowhere? I'm just curious. Just curious.
Don't give them ideas.
Just want to help them out.
Okay, guys, ladies, all right, thank everyone for your participation and your help in making this hair center the best place in the world, so, thank you.
Motion
See
to
you next time.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Kill you for 1 minute.
I'm like, we've got